So this isn't a technical review. This isn't going to be measuring like colour depth, resolution, response times, any of that sort of stuff you'd find in a proper monitor review. This is about hands-on, what is this monitor actually like? Now, it's very Mac-centric. I don't have a Windows machine, so if you're looking for something which is Windows-centric, you can go and move on. I'm a web developer by trade, so this is very sort of focused. I'm viewing this through the lens of that job. Okay, so with those caveats out of the way, let's begin. So I bought this monitor a few days ago as a cheaper alternative, a cheaper 6K alternative to the Apple XDR display. This monitor in the UK costs about £2,500 compared with £5,000 for the Apple XDR. This Dell 3224KDA 6K is a great monitor, but I won't be keeping this, so I want to explain to you why I won't be keeping it, but maybe you perhaps should. Let's get the deal breaker out of the way right at the top. The primary reason this is going back is that if you own a 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro, Intel powered, you cannot drive this monitor above 30 Hz. I've tried multiple different Thunderbolt 4 cables, the one that came with the box, different ones. It does not run above 30 Hz. This is a known problem, there's people talking about it on different forums, but the fact remains there's no way around it currently. And I don't hold out much hope that this is going to get fixed anytime soon. I don't think it's a problem with the monitor per se. My understanding at this point is that it's to do with Apple's drivers. And given that this is an old Intel powered MacBook from years ago, I don't imagine it's something that's going to get solved anytime soon. But if you don't own that laptop, the rest of this review is pretty much all positive. This monitor costs about £2,500 here in the UK compared to the £5,000 of the Apple XDR. But not only is it half the price, you actually get practically a whole lot more for your money. You've got Thunderbolt 4 ports, you've got multiple USB ports, you've got 2.5 gig Ethernet built in, you've got a very good quality 4K adjustable tiltable camera on the top, a decent soundbar built in, as well as some very cool sort of pop-out ports that you can hide and show as you need them at the front of the monitor. It's also got this lovely little hand-wavy gesture thing you can do down at the bottom left here to get these different indicators on to shut the camera shutter, turn the sound off, little quick actions like that. And get this, Apple, it even comes with a stand. How about that? So the Dell 6K 3224KDA, it comes packaged mostly in cardboard, very minimal plastic and foam, so well done Dell for that. If you're using the stand, that just clips in, otherwise you're going to want to use those Visa screws and you're going to want to unscrew them first, put it onto your monitor arm, screw it back in, plug in your input sources, plug in your power, switch it on, and away you go. Now I will say, at first, getting used to this massive forehead, no, not that one, this one here, this whole section here is kind of a bit odd at first because your mind sort of assumes that your screen isn't filling the whole display. But that's not something that stays very long. Like 10 minutes in, you forget that that's there and it's totally fine. The sound bar, which is up at the top here, is actually covered in a kind of fabric mesh, which is actually a bit of a sort of dust magnet. I find even after only a couple of days, I'm forever plucking bits of debris and whatnot out of there. So that's slightly annoying. But the camera itself has got this lovely built-in sort of tilt mechanism at the top. And it doesn't have that glossy sort of glass look like the Apple displays. It is a matte finish, but I actually quite like that. I don't think that's a problem at all, but obviously your preferences might vary. I do think the glass screens of the Apple ones tend to make things look a little bit sharper, but I can't sort of back that up with any theory. On a Mac, you'll most certainly want to be running this display at half its native resolution. That's going to give you like a double density pixel, which is what, you know, Apple in their terminology would call a retina display. Now I'm coming from a Dell 40-inch 5K 2K 4021QW monitor, and straight away I could see that the text here, for example, in code was a little bit sharper, but not as sharp as I perhaps expected. The 5K 2K Dell that I had is the same kind of resolution density as like if you've got a 32-inch 4K display, and I tend to run mine a scale of about 4096 by 1728, something like that, and I run it at a scaling factor of about 1.25, and you would think there'd be quite a big visual difference between the two. You can tell the 6K is sharper, almost certainly, but I think the margins are finer than I would have expected. Because it's not that much better, I find it hard to swallow the fact that on the 40-inch I can have 3 split views in my code editor and a browser window right the way across. If I drop down to this 32-inch 6K display, even though it's a little bit sharper, which I really enjoy, I don't have enough space to do that. So for me, it was another reason why I didn't think it was worth the extra sort of £1,000 or so to go for the 6K over the thing that I already had. Depending on how you work, that might be something to think about. Some people prefer a sort of small dedicated area. Some people prefer a wider expanse with stuff spread across it. Nothing's right here, it's just whatever your preference is, but it's something to think about. You know, if you don't need that extra width, this is an absolute beauty to work on. So now, in the hope of showing you the difference in the resolution, I'm going to do some very crude shots now, taken with this camera at the same sort of distance that I'm stood here looking at the monitor. So I'm going to be like this sort of far away, and then I'm going to zoom the camera right in. So let's look at that first on the 40-inch wide. So here it is, a sort of a normal viewing distance away from the screen, and then I'm going to take the camera right in and show you what the text looks like as close in as I can get with the camera still able to focus. To hold that image in your head now, and we'll look at the 6K. So here we are again, a normal sort of distance from the screen as I would be looking at it, and then here it is as close in as I can get with the camera lens where it still focuses. It isn't the best visual representation of the difference between these two resolutions, but even this way, I hope you can see that there really isn't that much difference in terms of the sharpness of the text on both of these monitors. I occasionally play a game of FIFA or Fortnite with one of my children, and you'll be pleased to know the PlayStation 5 connects to this monitor absolutely perfectly. I've got this connected with HDMI. You can turn the PlayStation on, and if the monitor's in standby, it'll automatically wake up and display. Now, on the 40-inch monitor that I've got, the PlayStation 5 isn't able to do an ultra-wide aspect ratio. So you can see here on the Dell 40-inch, I get the black bars either side, but the game, perfectly playable, looks pretty good. You can see 60 frames per second there, up in the corner. And the good thing about on the 6K is because of the 16:9 aspect ratio, the games on the PlayStation 5 fill the screen perfectly, and you can see with that same connection, it's able to drive Fortnite at like 59, 60 frames a second, just like on the other monitor. No problems at all. You can't really tell much difference, or I certainly couldn't tell much difference in terms of the resolution and how good it looks between those two monitors. So again, nothing much between them, just to let you know that it will work with the PlayStation 5 absolutely perfectly well. One of the reasons why, besides the cost, I wouldn't have ever had one of the Apple XDR displays is that it can't handle multiple inputs well. The Dells that have the KVM built in, the keyboard video monitor switcher built into them, work absolutely brilliantly. So I can swap between a work laptop, my own computer, PlayStation 5 or whatever, very, very easily. You've got a little sort of thumbstick at the back of the monitor. You click that in, change to input source, change it to what you want, and everything gets swapped over. And because you've got like your Ethernet and various USB peripherals connected, each time you switch over, they get switched over with it, so they're all available to the other device that you switch to. Brilliant system, never goes wrong. I don't have anything negative to say about that at all. And the monitor wakes quickly enough from sleep as well. Here it is, me tapping the key on a Bluetooth keyboard, and you can see there how quickly the monitor wakes up. Again, no issues there at all. This built-in 4K webcam has got built-in physical shutter. It's physically tiltable, as you can see there, and it's also a really, really good quality. So here's some footage now shot using QuickTime, just using that camera directly. I'm not using any of the Dell software. I've not adjusted the levels or anything of that sort. That's just raw straight out of the 4K webcam, which just shows up as a source in QuickTime when you record. And you can see nice wide angle, wider than I would like really, because there's all piles of crap in the way that you can see there. But it's a really good high quality webcam built right into the device. And by way of a comparison, here's the webcam that I run on my 40-inch display, which is the Logitech C922. Not a particularly great webcam, but lots of people have got this, so it gives you a decent frame of reference as the difference in quality between the two. It's also worth knowing that even if you're on a Mac, when you plug this, when you use this monitor with Teams, you get all sort of Teams niceties that the monitor recognises, you know, and you can initiate calls and mute calls and all that sort of stuff with these little controls down the bottom left. You can get by using the built-in soundbar on this monitor, and it's pretty good quality. In fact, it's really quite decent quality, particularly if you're just using it for calls and watching odd clips of YouTube, things of that nature. It's probably no substitute for a proper sound system, a decent set of cans or a decent speaker system, but you could certainly get by with it depending on your needs. You can also, if you do want to run your sound through somewhere else, you can just turn the speaker off entirely in the settings. And I mentioned before, it's covered with this sort of fabric mesh like an old school speaker, which is nice enough, but it is a bit of a magnet for debris, and do find yourself brushing bits off it constantly. But yeah, if you're only interested in calls and the like, it's really quite decent, and it saves having more clutter and bits and pieces on your desk. Well, that's pretty much the end of this very short sort of overview. This is initial impressions after a few days, but hopefully this has addressed some of the questions that you might have had if you're thinking about getting one of these for your Mac. I think it's an absolutely great monitor. There really is nothing else like it in the market at this sort of price point, and it adds all these extra bits and pieces that you just don't get with the only equivalent monitor, which is the Apple XDR. You got this top quality webcam, the Thunderbolt ports, loads of USB ports, the pop-out ports at the bottom, built-in soundbar, built-in 2.5 gig Ethernet. It really is a really good package. So it is expensive, but for most practical purposes, it's probably a lot better value than the Apple XDR. But remember, if you've got an Apple 2019 Intel-powered MacBook Pro, 16-inch, you cannot drive this monitor above 30 Hz at the minute. If you do know how to get around this, or this problem has been fixed, please let us know in the comments below, and I might even go and order one again. And by the same token, if you're coming to this monitor from a 4K display, or one of the 5K, 2K ultra-wide displays, the difference in perceived quality of things like text rendering and that might not be enough to make it worth your while. Hopefully those clips of the two screens might help you understand the differences between the two and make an educated guess. For everyone else, if you can afford it, value for money wise, this might just be the best monitor you can buy for your Mac right now. I hope this was useful. If it was, hit those buttons and do all that stuff that you're supposed to do. And I'll see you again sometime.